Hey everybody, I'm Mama Baird and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you what I whipped up for dinner, plus a little tasty dessert. I don't know about you guys, but winter is here. We've gotten a lot of snowfall here in Montana, and it's just that time of year for some good old-fashioned comfort food. So in today's video, I whip up a delicious tamale pie that I was able to make with some meat that I got for a discount at Super One. One of the best ways that I keep my grocery bill under budget is to be able to buy discounted meat. This is meat that wasn't on sale 15 minutes ago, but now it is. So that's a good way to stay under budget when you're grocery shopping, is to try and find some discounted meat, which is what you'll see in the video here. Plus, I whip up some delicious banana bread. So let's get in the kitchen and let's see how I do it. If you're new to the channel, my name is Carolina. I live in Montana. I do a lot of pantry cooking, budget shopping, and product reviews on my channel. If that's the kind of content you're into, I hope you'd consider subscribing. I'd love to have you come join me in the kitchen. All right, let's get to it and let's make some tasty dinner. Here is the meat that I was referring to. This was a little over 4 pounds of 80/20 ground beef, and then it had a $5 off coupon on it. So with that coupon, it was only $7, and I think that is a great deal, so I was able to grab one of those. They had about 3 of these, but just one of them is good for now, just a little extra to help stock the freezer. So I'm going to cook about 1/3 of this, and this is what's going to be for our dinner. I'm just putting it in a cast iron skillet and getting that browned up. And then the rest of it we are going to portion for later. Now while that's cooking, I'm going to make the topping for our tamale pie. I have 1 box of Jiffy corn mix here, and then I'm going to add 1 egg to it and then milk. Another thing that you can add instead of milk is sour cream. That works really well. You could do buttermilk, you could do Greek yogurt, anything like that that's kind of the same consistency. Now one thing I've noticed when making this tamale pie is that you want your batter to be thin, otherwise you have too much cornbread to filling ratio, in my opinion. So I always make my cornbread extra thin when making this particular dish. So I'm just going to keep adding milk slowly but surely until it gets to the consistency that I want. Now I did have a plan on using the diced green chilies in the cornbread mixture as well, so I was going to put that can in there. But when I was looking for the can of diced tomatoes, I noticed I had one with diced chilies in them already, so I decided to not add that. Now I drained my beef when it was all done, and I'm going to add some seasoning. This is everything but the elote chipotle seasoning, you know what I'm saying. I'm trying to get that used up, so I'm going to be seasoning it with that. You could also just do salt, pepper, garlic powder, anything like that. Now I'm just cooking this to kind of get a nice sear on it. I want my meat to have some caramelization, some browned to it. So once that happens, I'm going to add this whole can of diced tomatoes. You could also add rotel, or you could just add petite regular tomatoes. It doesn't have to be the ones with the diced chili, but the diced chili happens to go well with this meal, so that's the one that I used up. Plus I had the best by date by 9/21, so I need to get it used up. So I'm going to add that, and the juice from the tomatoes is going to help deglaze the pans, which means it's going to help get some of that brown crispy bits off of the bottom of it. And then I'm going to add half a can of black beans. I should have just added the whole can, but I did half a can, and then I added some frozen corn. So you're just going to get this mixed up. It will have some juice on the bottom of there because of the diced tomatoes and then of the frozen corn as well. So I'm going to add a pack of this turkey gravy that I have, and that's going to help thicken it up because that gravy has a cornstarch mixture to it. So that's going to help make a nice thick gooey consistency, if that makes sense. Like it'll have a sauce to it. But this is not going to be enough sauce, so we are going to add some liquid to this, and I'm going to add some homemade chicken stock that I have. Beef broth would also be a great option, or you could just add water because technically that turkey gravy has seasoning in it to make it, so you could do that as well. But I had figured that was just extra flavor. So I added the chicken stock, and we're just going to let that boil for a little bit to thicken up. So once that is done, we're going to go ahead and get it transferred to an 8x8 skillet. Now technically I could have just left it in the cast iron skillet pan and then put the topping on top of it, but I like spreading it out, and like I said, I like the cornbread layer to be a little thinner than normal, so I moved it to an 8x8 stoneware pan. Now since the cornbread's been sitting out, it's thickened up a little bit, so I'm going to add a little more milk to it just to make it so I can pour it on there and make a nice thin layer. So now that it's at the consistency I'm looking for, we're just going to pour it on there. Little Miss is helping me. I love having the kids in the kitchen trying to help me and learn how to do things. It's really good for them. And hey, pretty soon they'll be able to cook me dinner, right? And I can take a break. So you're just going to kind of move it all around. You want to get it completely covered. Make sure you're scraping all of your containers and sauces and everything, because you know you paid good money for that stuff. You don't want to waste it by throwing it in the trash. So make sure you're scraping everything really good, and then you're just going to spread it out into a nice thin layer. Make sure you go all the way to the edges. So now that it's all spread out, we're going to pop this into a 350-degree oven. And I'm going to set the timer for 35 minutes, but it did need 10 additional minutes after that. Now, since I have the oven on, I decided I'm going to go ahead and make some banana bread. I have some bananas that need to get used up, and it just sounds good. So I have 1 stick of butter, and then I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar. The recipe just calls for a regular granulated sugar, but I like using brown sugar because it has that molasses in there, which adds a nice, good additional flavor. And you're just going to cream this together. I decided to do it by hand instead of bringing out my mixer, and then the whisk probably wasn't the best idea, but I'm working on it, and then eventually I'm going to switch over to a wooden spoon because that's going to work a lot better. So you're just going to cream this together. This is something, works better in the mixer, but you can do it by hand as well. You don't need a fancy mixer to bake stuff and get stuff creamed together. So once this is just all mixed up, I'm going to add my eggs. The recipe called for 2 large eggs. I have my chicken eggs, and they're kind of new egg layers, so they're a little smaller. So I'm going to add 3 eggs to this. And then it also called for 3 mashed bananas, but I had 4 bananas I needed to use up, so I just added an extra banana, not a big deal. And then I added a splash of vanilla. That was about a teaspoon there. And you're just going to get this mixed up. It's kind of hard to cream it all together when you do it by hand, but it worked out just fine. You just got to keep working it and keep mixing it, and then it gets incorporated. And then that's all for the wet goods. So I'm going to add the banana in to this and kind of get that all mixed up before I start adding the dry goods to it. You do want to mix the dry goods together, but instead of doing that in a separate bowl, I just kind of layered them and then mixed them a bit in the bowl. So I'm going to add 1 3/4 cup of flour. I do wish I would have added like maybe half a cup extra flour because of that banana. And then you're going to add half a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of baking soda. And then you can see with the fork there, I'm just kind of mixing it in with the flour, and then we're going to go ahead and mix it all up. Again, I'm using a fork, which ends up being the wrong tool for this, so we're going to switch to a spatula. Don't be afraid to switch utensils in and out. I mean, that's probably why I always have a sink full of dishes, is because I'm constantly using lots of different utensils, but I'm not afraid to do that to make sure I get the consistency that I need. I have a bar pan that has 4 slots in it for little mini loaves. These are perfect, so I'm going to separate and put a little bit of the batter in each one. And I'm going to add some chips to this. So to half of it, I'm going to add peanut butter chips. And then to the other half, we're going to add chocolate chips. Now, I don't really think the peanut butter added too much. I couldn't really taste it, but the chocolate chips were really good. So that's something that you can add. Walnuts are always good to go in the banana bread as well. So we did half and half, and then I was planning on doing half of the batter on top. I did run a little bit out of batter though, as you can see, so that back one didn't get quite as much. That's why I was wishing I would have added a little more flour to it, but that's okay. That one just ended up being a little shorter, and it was still quite tasty though. So you're going to get this all mixed up. I just kind of spread it on the topping around it and then mixed in the chocolate chips for each loaf. And then we're going to put this in the oven with our tamale pie at 350. So this is what the tamale pie came out after 45 minutes. And now I'm going to add a layer of Mexican cheese, just because that's the type of cheese that I have in my fridge right now. And you're going to do a good layer all around and let this melt. So I did about 10 extra minutes in there so it could be nice and crispy. And then while all that is going, I was working on portioning up the rest of that beef, so I have it vacuum sealed. I didn't weigh it or anything, I kind of just eyeballed it, and then now those are going in the freezer for later. And now the tamale pie is out. This was after the 10 minutes. I'm going to let it cool, but it looked fantastic and smelled amazing. So now that it's been cooling for probably about 15 minutes or so, I let it sit there for a bit. The cornbread is nice and solid. The cheese is crunchy, and then you have a nice gooey center with the meat. The diced chilies with the tomatoes were a little spicy, so I went ahead and added some sour cream to it. That always goes really well with tamale pie. You could add more cheese on top. You could do fresh tomatoes. Ooh, you could do sliced olives. That would be good as well. Pretty much any kind of garnish that you would like on this type. And that's what we had for dinner. It was really good. Definitely something that I make a lot and that we will be making again. I really hope that you give this meal a try. I think your kids will love it. And now that the banana bread has cooled, this is the smaller one that had the peanut butter in it. I don't always put butter on the banana bread, but when it's warm out of the oven, I like to do a good spread of butter on there. And it was really good. It's been a minute since I made some good old-fashioned banana bread. And the good thing about these loaves is that they fit perfectly in a Ziploc sandwich bag, so they work great for gifts. Didn't that tamale pie look absolutely amazing? The cornbread was nice and thin, but still firm, so it had a really good meat to cornbread ratio. Perfect with the sour cream. You could also put diced tomatoes and cilantro on there. That would be good as well. And that banana bread, let me tell you, I love that baking it in a stoneware because it makes like a crispy outer edge, but a nice fluffy center. Thank you so much for joining me as I made dinner and dessert. If you give either recipe a try, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you next time on Mama Bears.